Hello everyone, I am Ashlesha Deshpande and today I'll be starting with the first chapter of your TY BCom syllabus, that is overheads. This is the first chapter in the paper 2, that is cost and works accounting paper 2. I have divided this chapter into a few subtopics for the sake of convenience, and in every single video I'll be talking about that particular subtopic. In this video, I'll be particularly talking about the basic concept of overheads itself. So in this video, we'll be discussing the meaning of overheads, the definition of overheads, and from the analysis of the definition, we'll find out what are the features of overheads. So without any further delay, let's start. As a layman or as a common man, if you are asked, what are overheads? What comes in your mind? Money? Expenses? Cost? If you're thinking like that, then you're thinking in the right direction. Because the basic meaning of overheads is hidden in the word itself. If I break the word overheads into two halves, look what happens. Overheads. Over can be referred to as expenses or costs that are incurred over and above or in addition to something. What is this something? This something are certain obvious expenses or direct expenses which are bound to incur. So any further expenses over and above these direct expenses can be termed together as overheads. Now these overheads are very commonly known as indirect costs. Why is that so? Why indirect? Let us find out together. For that, if you remember, in the last year we studied the concept of total cost. Total cost comprises of two sections, prime cost and overheads. Out of that prime cost you are already familiar with. It comprises of direct material, direct labor and direct expenses. Why direct? Because these expenses are directly traceable to particular cost centers and cost units, and they have very particular benefits associated with them. For example, if you buy certain raw material which is directly going to go in particular finished product, then you can associate the cost of that raw material directly to that particular product. Okay. Now when it comes to overheads, what is the composition of overheads? Overheads are composed of indirect material, indirect labor and indirect expenses. Why indirect? The explanation is exactly opposite to that of direct. These expenses are indirect because they are not directly traceable to particular cost centers or cost units, and they have general benefits. For example, the oils or lubricants that are used in production processes, they are shared by everyone, right? Every machine, same lubricants or same oils might be used, and as a result of that, their costs are also shared because their benefits are shared. Moving ahead, we need to now see the definitions of overheads given by certain renowned institutions and people. The first and foremost definition that you have to study is the definition given by Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, London, commonly known as CIMA. So CIMA says that overhead is an aggregate of indirect material, indirect wages and indirect expenses. In definitions, words carry immense importance. So in this case particularly, the word aggregate carries immense importance and gives weight to the definition and the meaning that it conveys to all of us. As a result of that, whenever you will write certain definitions anywhere, please be particular with certain words. Aggregate is the word in this case. Okay. Then the next definition that I found pretty simple is given by W. Big. He says that all indirect costs are termed as overheads. Now see the irony, his name is big and the definition is pretty small to remember. That's why I picked this particular definition, and he also emphasizes on the point that overheads are indirect costs. Now from all of this explanation, one thing we can definitely conclude. What is it? Overheads are costs which the cost accountant is either unable to or unwilling to allocate to particular cost units. Now why unable? I explained it just a moment back. Because they cannot be directly allocated, they need to be apportioned on some suitable basis because their benefits are shared the costs also need to be shared. That's why unable to allocate to particular cost units. Why unwilling? It's because of the difference in perspectives. As all of you know that cost accounting is not as standardized as accounting itself, okay, as financial accounting. And as a result of that, every cost accountant has his or her own perspective to various things even till now. Even today, there are certain points over which there is a small disagreement or dispute between two cost accountants. One may find a particular cost is direct in nature, while the same cost may be treated as indirect by some other cost accountant. This happens because of the difference in perspectives. Now, with all of these definitions and after analyzing the definitions, we need to find out the features of overheads. Let us look at them one by one. So my friend is over here, her name is Julia, and she's going to help you compile all the features. First is, she says that overheads are indirect costs. What are indirect costs? That we have discussed right now. Then, next important point is they are common costs. What are common costs? Common costs are shared costs. Why shared costs? Because their benefits are shared, so the costs need to be shared. They need to be apportioned. Now, under overheads, under the umbrella concept of overheads, there are certain subtypes of costs that are also included. First one being cash and non-cash expenses. Both of them can be termed as overheads. What are cash expenses? You all know. Cash is actually exchanged in order to get certain benefits. For example, rent. Rent is paid to use the space. Correct? What are non-cash expenses? There are a bunch of examples. Common one being depreciation. Then, production and non-production expenses. Meaning is hidden in the names itself. Then variable and fixed expenses, depending upon the behavior of those expenses in relation to the activity level or volume of output. And escapable and inescapable expenses, commonly known as avoidable and unavoidable expenses. Under this umbrella concept of overheads, all these kinds of expenses can be included. So I think that's it for today, and in the next video I'll be talking about the classification of overheads. So that is a pretty important question from your UG exam point of view. That video will be coming up soon. So stay tuned to the channel, and until then, stay home, stay safe.